Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Gravedigging, the show where I, your host, go back in time to when I was dead and look at the history of film. Since this is the first episode, we are looking at the first films ever made. So settle down and let's look at the origin of filmmaking.
The first film of all time can be dated all the way back to 1888, with the Roundhay Garden scene. It wasn't much, all it was a video of a family in their garden. But little did the Lumiere brothers know that this would change the entertainment industry forever. The funny thing is that the Lumiere brothers thought that this amazing invention that they had created would just be a passing fad, and it would just come and go. Well, it's clear to me now that the Lumiere brothers did not understand the potential of film. And that's where Georges Méliès comes in. George was a professional magician, born in 1861. His interest in filmmaking came when he watched his first film ever, which was made by the Lumiere brothers. After he had seen it, he realised that he could use this new invention to elevate his magic. So he started making films. He started small with films pretty similar to the Lumiere films. Then one day he was filming a city street and his camera stopped working for a second, and then it started up again. When he went back to check the footage, he realised that the people in the film had suddenly teleported to a different position, and that is when he accidentally discovered editing. He realised that he could use this to enhance his magic and filmmaking by using simple editing tricks. Today we use editing softwares and programs. For example, I'm using iMovie to edit this video, but back then Georges Méliès had to physically cut the film and stick it back together to edit his movies. Anyway, he would then go on to make many movies using this new editing technique that he had found, amazing anyone who would see them. Then in 1902 he would make his masterpiece, and that of course is A Trip to the Moon. This is by far his longest film, coming in at 12 minutes. But the reason that this film in particular is so famous is because it created movies as we know them today, as it was the first film to have a narrative. I guess you could say that his other films had a narrative, but I feel like they were more built around a magic trick that he wanted to present to the audience. Now, do I like this movie? To answer that question in one word, kind of. The thing about this movie is that you have to keep in mind the time period that it was made, and that is the same for all of these old movies. I feel like the fun of watching old movies like this is to figure out how they did the special effects with the limitations that they had at the time, and also the set design is amazing, as these days the sets are just green screen, and while that opens a lot of opportunities and possibilities, the limitations that Georges Méliès had to work against to make this movie, it just makes it more interesting to watch. Later on, George would make a coloured version of A Trip to the Moon, which he achieved by colouring each frame by hand. This must have taken a very long time, even with a team of people, as the movie runs at 14 frames per second. I personally vastly prefer the black and white version, as something about the colourised version makes it look oversaturated. However, you've got to respect the amount of effort it must have taken to colour every single frame. So, to sum up, yes, I like this movie. One of the shots from the film is my profile picture, so I think that says a lot about where I stand with this movie. Then, in 1903, the Lumiere brothers would make their first narrative film, called The Great Train Robbery. Some consider this to be the first narrative film, but I have no idea what they're talking about because A Trip to the Moon came out a whole year beforehand. However, I will credit this to be the first Western film and the first time for a gun to show up in a movie, which I guess is an achievement. This movie is not nearly as visually interesting as A Trip to the Moon, although the last shot is super iconic. That shot even inspired the last shot of Goodfellas. So, I guess fun fact. To be honest, there isn't really much to say about this movie apart from the iconic final shot. All the movie is about is a group of men robbing a train. I would still recommend you go and watch it if you're a film buff, as it is one of the first movies and it's pretty iconic. You can go watch both A Trip to the Moon and The Great Train Robbery on YouTube.
Anyway, that was the origin of film summed up in a short video. Next time we will be looking at Dante's Inferno, which is the first ever feature-length horror movie and the first Italian movie of all time. This is one of my personal favourite horror movies and the scariest movie for me, so I will likely have more to say about it than the movies in today's video. So make sure to tune in next time. I have been your host, Finley Cooper. Make sure to give someone a compliment today and have a very nice day. Goodbye.